Hello, and welcome to this Educo Life Sciences trainer interview where we spoke to our expert medical device trainer, Richard Young. In the interview, we discussed combination products and specifically asked him about the device requirements of a combination product, such as whether the device must comply with state-of-the-art and the general safety performance requirements, and a lot more. If you find this interview useful and you want to stay up to date with the latest Educo interviews, trainer interviews, free Module 1 training sessions, and all of our courses, please subscribe on our website.
Well, combination products are a very interesting and growing part of the panoply of medical solutions that we see today. And combination products are where we have elements of a medical device, usually combined with pharmaceutical agents. And these can be either regulated as either drugs or as medical devices. And what it's important to do is ensure that we recognize when these combinations are happening, and we ensure that we're regulating them correctly, and we've considered the design of the product, and we understand what each element is bringing to the party, what the features of each element are, and how that's driving the regulation of these products. Really growing area. There are a lot of these products out there now, and really exciting for especially in areas like drug delivery. It's really this consideration of the regulatory pathway, the inclusion of pharmaceutical, if you're a medical device manufacturer, the inclusion of a pharmaceutical product in the design of your product adds complication, and it brings you complication in a direction you haven't had to deal with or work with before. So a typical drug device combination might be something like a drug-eluting stent, where a coronary stent is being introduced into the heart, and the stent portion that's left in the coronary artery includes a drug that has an effect that secondary to the actual stent that's being in place. And that one, by the way, is generally a medical device. But as soon as we introduce the pharmaceutical product into the picture, we have to consider pharmaceutical regulation. We have to consider how we're going to get that product in there. And we have to have an enhanced communication with our notified body in Europe to ensure that they agree that the classification of the product is either as a medical device or a pharmaceutical. So that's a letter of we get from the notified body, getting their decision, notified body decision letter. So we need to get hold of that. And the classification of products that include these materials, if they are medical devices, are class 3 products. So we go to the highest risk classification as a default. The requirements for the pharmaceutical portion and the medical device portion don't change, regardless of who's regulating them. So we still have to design the medical device place with all the considerations of design that we would standardly apply to, and the same acceptance criteria. It's just directing it to the people, different sets of people who are going to do final assessment of that product before it's given market clearance. In the FDA being the US market, the FDA have a specific Office of Combination Products who are specifically set up to advise manufacturers on the classification of the product and on the routes that should be taken to get that product to the market, how to attack it and how to approach it. Very different in America and Europe, but there's a lot of commonality with approaches and so on. Just the regulatory route tends to be slightly different. Absolutely. The medical devices regulation, it's taken the European sense, the medical devices regulation in Europe specifically modifies pharmaceutical regulation. And what it basically says is we're not CE marking the product as we would for a medical device, but what we are doing is we're meeting Annex 1 of the regulation. And Annex 1, for those of you who aren't medical device people, Annex 1 of the regulation is the general safety and performance requirements that covers state-of-the-art requirements and applies things like biocompatibility and sterilization to the design and testing of medical devices. So that information that demonstrates compliance with the general safety and performance requirements is still going to be required. It still needs to be state-of-the-art. And that information is going to be part of the pharmaceutical submission if it is indeed put through and regulated as a pharmaceutical. Still need that information as you would normally do for medical device to make that happen, plus the additional complications of interactions between the device and the pharmaceutical. For a drug delivery device, we want to make sure they go together. We're also now interested in things like drug delivery rates, possible contamination. All these things are stuff that we're going to have to take into account and cover in the design and development of the product and its design history by that documentation bit that comes with it. It's the same, just a little bit more complicated. Yes, certainly. The principal mode of action is your basic starting point as a developer or a manufacturer to give yourself a hint as to the possible regulatory pathway that is going to be taken to support your product. So, and sometimes it can be very nuanced. Already mentioned a drug-eluting catheter. Now, a drug-eluting stent catheter. Now, that's a medical device because the primary mode of action of that is a stent. So there's a mechanical product being introduced into the body, into the coronary artery, that holds the artery open. So that's a medical primary physical action of a device. So that one will be regulated as a medical device with whatever's in the drug-eluting stent being secondary to the primary mode of action. You flip it the other way, something like a pre-filled syringe, maybe a syringe that contains a dose of topically COVID vaccine. Now that's regulated as a pharmaceutical because the medical device, the little syringe with the needle on it, is only there to hold the COVID vaccine and allow you to inject it. So it's a drug delivery thing. The primary thing you're trying to do is get the drug into, or in this case, the vaccine, into the patients. The primary mode of action is the medicinal one to do with the product that's being injected into you. So that would be regulated as a pharmaceutical product under control of the relevant pharmaceutical authorities in the countries you wish to get a product out in there. So it's a question of saying, what is the medical device bringing to the party? Is that higher than the pharmaceutical? What's doing what in the whole thing? Sometimes it can be very nuanced. For example, we can have bandages that are designed to work with maybe ulcerated leg wounds, which incorporate some pharmaceutical products. Now, we could argue for that, we could argue that either way. We could say that it's a medical device because the bandage is providing a physical barrier between the atmosphere and the wound, and there just happens to be some antibiotics or other medicinal products in there doing other things as well. Or we could argue that the bandage is actually there as a vehicle to put those drugs in contact with that ulcer to help healing. Both of those are valid arguments. And when we get stuck in those things, these are called borderline devices. And we try and resolve these by talking with notified bodies and asking for their opinions. We try, and there's a borderlines manual that's published by the Medical Device Coordination Group where examples of these are written down, where decisions have been made before. And as a final, if we can't resolve where it's going based on that, this is a very European thing. If we can't resolve it out of that, what we do is we ask the competent authorities of Europe, and they take a vote on it and decide how it should be regulated going forward. A lot simpler in America. We go to the Office of Combination Products and they just regulate combination products. So they don't really care which one's out in front. They are interested in the primary mode of action, but they're not using that as a signpost to direct how the regulations are going to be applied to the product, who basically takes the lead, because they're not separate agencies. They're all in one place together. But primary motor, great place to start. Very important to developers to understand what the primary mode of action is, to understand how the product's working. But don't fool yourself. Sometimes it really is the pharmaceutical doing work. And yes, you are going to have to work down that route. It's a really interesting course, this, presented by myself and my colleague Andrew Willis. And it gives the people attending the course, delegates to the course, the opportunity to, from either perspective, discuss products and their issues with the product development and the design of their products and regulatory challenges that go with that, to approach those problems with consultants who have a great deal of experience from completely different perspectives. So my perspective is very much the development of medical devices and the roles you have to follow that out, and the state of the art for those, and how you would apply it. And so my viewpoint is very much from that direction. The viewpoint from Andrew is very much from the development of pharmaceuticals and the requirements to document from that perspective. Do you know what? They're not in conflict. And we find explaining those things together in a coherent manner that allows people to understand both sides and how they go together, where that common ground is and what the common approach is, really helps people understand the planning of those projects, where the pitfalls should be, and what their route through these should be to successfully get a product to market. And things they need to consider. And we often we will almost exclusively get people on this course who are either pharmacists or people working for some pharmaceutical companies who've never developed medical devices before, or medical device designers who've never been involved in the development or regulation of pharmaceuticals before. So it's really an opportunity to open up your eyes and see the whole picture in one go, and get a real, not only the training that comes with the course, but an opportunity to discuss and consult with two people with different perspectives in the room in the course at the same time. So great value for money as far as that's a lot of free consultations over lunch.